And we're taking advantage of the just completed 145th Grand Annual Communication, Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Texas, on this 6th day of December 1980 to interview some more of our past Grand Masters of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Texas, which is a program under the supervision of the Committee on Masonic Education Service. My name's Leonard Harvey, a member of the committee, and today I'll be interviewing Right Worshipful Brother Duncan Carnes Howard, who served as Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Texas in 1973. Brother Howard, we appreciate the fact that you've taken time out to be with us on this occasion. I know that you've been busy and probably still have some other things to do here before getting away from the Grand Lodge, but being a native of Waco, maybe you can spare us this time without too much inconvenience. And it's a real privilege to have you with us, and if you have anything that you'd like to comment on at this time, we'd be glad to hear from you.
Well, I appreciate the privilege of chatting with you for a little while, and I especially wanted to compliment the committee on beginning this program for oral history. I think it's a real great contribution and can certainly be something that can be meaningful, not my comments, but other Grandmaster comments for generations to come. And I know there have been some great Masonic personages that I would love to visit with again, and I think that for posterity's sake, this film can be enjoyed for many, many years to come.
Thank you, Brother Duncan. I know from observation and attending Grand Lodge for the years that I have, and from your background, that you've been a very active Mason in our Grand Lodge, and you've had a lot of dedication and devotion to Masonry in Texas. We know that it's been mixed in with a lot of other activities in your life. So briefly, let's just look at Duncan Howard, the man, and Duncan Howard, the Mason. Brother Duncan Howard was born August the 7th, 1925 in Temple, Texas, in the Scott and White Hospital there. He is the son of W.C. and Gladys Duncan Howard. He received his grade school, or his elementary education, we'd say, in Eddy, Texas. The balance of it was in Waco Public Schools. Right. He attended and graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, and then ultimately graduated from the University of Texas Dental School in Houston in 1948. Raised a Master Mason in Fidelis Lodge, number 1127, here in Waco. Served as District Deputy Grand Master in 1961 under then Grand Master William G. Bill Proctor. And ultimately, at the top of the Masonic ladder, was elected Most Worshipful Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Texas in December 1972, and served as Grand Master of this Grand Lodge in 1973. Brother Howard, we know that, as we've said before, that your life has been very busy. We know that you've made a lot of contributions, not only to Masonry, but you've made a lot of civic contributions to your community here. We know that you've made a lot of contributions to your church life. But let's go back to the beginning now of Duncan Howard, the individual, and pick up Duncan Howard at a time when he took himself a wife and started from that point.
Well, I married Ann Lockwood, who was the daughter of Lee Lockwood, another past Grand Master, in the year 1939. Ann and I began going with each other our second year in high school, went together all through the university, and married my junior year in dental school. And we have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. And it was my privilege to raise both of my son-in-laws as Master Masons the year I served as Grand Master. And this was something that was a real highlight for that year. And I guess that's about the beginning of just a lifetime of happiness with one sweet person that I met young and have enjoyed the rest of the time.
Okay, from that beginning, I know that you've had some responsibilities in your church life. Tell us something about about your church affiliation and whatever responsibilities you might have associated with that.
Of course, we began church in the Methodist Church out at Moody. I was raised my early life about halfway between Moody and Eddy on a farm, and they always claimed that I have two hometowns. Moody claimed I was from Eddy, and Eddy claimed I was from Moody. But I began the Methodist Church in Moody, Texas, and our family tradition has always been of Methodist from a historical standpoint. My grandfather, Howard, whom I never knew, but left home as an orphan at an early age when he came to Texas. And in his memory, my grandmother built the first cottage home at the Methodist home, which was the Howard home. It is now being used as an emergency facility for abused children. We're proud of this. I was in the Methodist Church here in Waco for many, many years, taught old history, Old Testament Bible, and was chairman of the education. Recently, or not too recently, but about 3 years ago, we elected to join the Central Christian Church here in Waco. I served on that board of deacons. I'm presently chairman of the elders in that church with it, and we try to remain as active as we can.
Brother Howard, I want to ask you a question in relation to church and masonry, as the two might parallel. What is, in your opinion, is the happy medium? Apparently, you've reached the happy medium of a mason, active in masonry, and as a churchman, active in church. Do you think there's any great importance to the parallel for the mason to be active in the church and for the churchman to be active in masonry?
Well, I'm very definitely pleased and proud that masonry requires a belief in deity before we can become a mason. I think this gives us a selection of people and the common bond of knowing that there is a supreme being, and the association of people who feel as we do regarding a God in this world and a creator of all things. I have never had any conflict between the interpretation of religion and masonry, because masonry teaches a good life. If we knew everything that was in the Bible, we could lead a perfect Masonic life. And yet masonry has no plan of salvation. The means and ways that our soul is saved is the prerogative of our church denomination, and the two, while they can work in hand, are two separate areas of life.
From your own interpretation of what you're just saying, and from your own life and your experience and your observation of other people, do you believe that the good mason is also a good churchman, and that the two complement each other to that degree?
I think the two very definitely complement each other, and I know one of the little favorite phrases that I've always heard is, as the pioneers spread out over our nation and into our states, that wherever the pioneers landed, there was always a little white church, a little red school, and a little white lodge. And I think that masonry is a unifying force of community, and while we don't see maybe all of it, I like to think of masonry really as kind of like a hidden spring in the desert. You don't see the water, you just see the beautiful oasis that you know something down there is nourishing. And you don't see masonry a lot in the community, but you can see the schools and you can see the good social structure that you and I know as being Masons are the direct result of Masons applying the teachings of our order into the community that surrounds them. And this gives visible evidence of masonry in any community, just like the beautiful foliage over an oasis would of the hidden spring in the desert.
Very well put. Very well put. Brother Hart, you've been active in just about every phase of masonry, and for sake of posterity, briefly give us a resume of your many affiliations.
One thing I'm very proud of is while I am a member of Fidelis Lodge, which is the lodge that raised me, my home lodge, and the one that I became parish master of, I'm also a dual member of James H. Lockwood Lodge, which was organized in the early 1950s and was named for my wife's grandfather. And this has been a source of pleasure. I guess that the main thing that led me into Masonry was the influence of both my father and my father-in-law. I don't remember any known member of my family on either side. It was just one of those families where the men were all Masons, and it was more or less accepted. I grew up in a small town where we had no trouble identifying the Masons. They were the leaders in the community. They were the people that you knew you could count on, the merchants, the doctors, and everything of this nature. I can remember very vividly that my father attended the Masonic funerals with regularity in his lodge in his town, and this in its own self gave a basis that Masonry should be a pattern and a way of life. So once I was privileged to join Masonry, I became as active as would be permitted. I even enjoyed helping the stewards make some of the coffee before I ever got to be appointed a steward. I guess one of the happiest times of my life was when I was appointed steward and got to really feel like that I was knowing and meeting and doing some service to my brothers. I had pretty much a full lineup of progression to the master, and then after serving as master of my lodge, I pretty soon joined the Scottish Rite bodies in Austin, Texas. We became involved in the organization of Scottish Rite consistory here in Waco. I was privileged to be the Charter One member. I was out of town at the time when they signed the charter, but they waited for me to return so I could sign for charter membership number 1, which I did. And I was the first Venerable Master of Waco, and also served as the chairman. At that time they called it the Executive Committee for it. I also served as membership chairman for a little while after the prime good 100% membership chairman that we had, Roy Thompson, died while he was in service of membership chairman. And after becoming involved in Grand Lodge election, I just didn't have time to do the job that I felt like I needed to do there and still take care of the responsibilities of Grand Lodge. So I resigned as both chairman of the executive committee and as the membership committee also, and just spent my life more or less in that in Blue Lodge. I've never really gone back into any active association in independent order, having finished with my Grand Lodge. I enjoy Masonic meetings, and I enjoy the Masonic brothers on the Blue Lodge level more than I do the others. I enjoy my membership. I enjoy the good that the Shrine does with his hospital, the Scottish Rite does with his hospital, the Eye Foundation, and all of the parts and composite pictures that makes Masonry kind of a many-faceted thing that, like any other jewel, each facet can sparkle and is worthwhile to look at as an individual. But the complex to me is still the support of Blue Lodge Masonry. And then I've combined my Masonry along with activities out into the community. I have been active with the Chamber of Commerce. I've been on various boards and directors of like the Goodwill Industries and some of those things. But it to me was, again, trying to in some way practice what I was taught in the lodge room, outside the lodge room, and it's always just been kind of a guiding force and direction to my life.
Very good. What are some of the, you neglected to tell us, probably out of modesty, what are some of the honorary titles and ranks that you hold in your other Masonic affiliation?
Well, let's see. I'm a member of, I have my 33rd degree in Scottish Rite Masonry, a member of the Red Cross of Constantine, Royal Order of Scotland. I've held a certificate. I have a lifetime certificate in my esoteric work. Well, there's some others. I'm just not thinking of them real well right now. But I've enjoyed and appreciated every recognition that I've ever had in Masonry. I've never thought of any part of Masonry as being an honor. I realize it is an honor. I like to think of it more as an opportunity to do something else.
Brother Howard, you've been a Mason, I think, 50 years, 30 years.
30. More, closer to 30 than 50.
30. I was thinking about the year 1950, I suppose, is what I was done. Who knows? I might be around when you're
right.
Mason 50 years.
I hope so.
You
I
might
hope we
be.
both
Yeah.
are here at that time.
Right. You just kind of think back a little bit when you first became a Mason. You're thinking about brand new Master Mason Duncan Howard, and think about Masonry at that particular time and Masonry as we have observed it even through today. What would be your comparison of Masonry during that span of 30 years? Has it changed? Is it still the same? Are Masons thinking differently now than they did back then, or what is your analysis of it?
I believe that as a group here in Waco, not just my own lodge, I think we were all a little bit more active as far as the officers of one lodge visiting in bodies to another lodge on work nights. I believe our members were a little bit more prone to visit from lodge to lodge and exercise the privilege of a Master Mason in one lodge being able to go over and have communication with his Masonic brethren in another lodge. Our lodges in Waco used to, as a group, meet as a combined certificate class. At most of that time, I believe that nearly every lodge in the city of Waco had every line officer that had a certificate in the work. I don't think that we were any better Masons. I just think that we probably had a little bit more time, a little bit less influence in television and maybe pro football. We spent more time with each other in lodge, I think, for it. I think that would be about the main thing. I think that the lodges today have excellent programs, and it may be that they're just as active. It may be that this is another later age group that I'm in now, and it may seem like that they're not doing as much visitation as we did. But we did have a group that worked on Master Mason's degrees, both in Waco and out of the territory. We used robe degrees and were available for invitations and things of that nature. And I don't believe that there maybe is quite as much of that in this area now as it was.
Well, you've had pretty recent experience having served as Grand Master and being active as you are now in the general area of Masonry through this Grand Lodge. What is your opinion of the general health or condition of Masonry in Texas right now?
I think we're coming on what could be one of the greatest opportunities that Masonry in Texas has ever had as our state grows in the Sun Belt state area. We're increasing population. Economically, we're not being maybe as hurt recession-wise as some other parts of the country. We have over excess of, say, 200 and something thousand Masons of Texas alone now that are affiliated with regular lodges under the jurisdiction of our Grand Lodge. But we possibly have at least that other number of Masons who are unaffiliated in good standing with an out-of-jurisdiction lodge that have moved to Texas for maybe their life's work and full citizenship with time. And I think that with the number of increased population, that we're going to have opportunities to initiate more people. With the possibilities of affiliation, if we can concentrate on making the out-of-jurisdiction Masons welcome into our Texas lodges, I think we have a real opportunity for a growth pattern.
Brother Hart, what prompted you, what particular circumstance prompted you to petition for Mason in the first place?
Well, I guess, again, you might say that everyone historically in my family had always been Masons, and we were more or less looking forward to the time that we could be a Mason. I didn't get to join right at 22 or 21. I was finishing up my dental school and getting kind of established in it, but there was always never any doubt in my mind that I was going to be a Mason. And my father had a great influence on me there. He always, they say you don't solicit your children and everything, but we always knew that whenever we were ready to join Masonry, our father was going to pay for our entered apprentice degree. And he paid for my entered apprentice degree and my fellowcraft degree and my master's degree. And then he told me that if I wanted anything else out of Masonry, I was on my own financially. He, again, was one of those that kind of lived most of his life within the Blue Lodge area.
Could you single out any particular Mason that you would say has had the strongest influence in your life?
Well, naturally, my father-in-law, Mr. Lockwood, he both raised me as a Mason in the lodge and in my life outside of the lodge, too. In fact, having started going with his oldest daughter the second year in high school and through college, he also probably practically raised me as much as my other family as far as just my youth. He used to do things with us like maybe we'd go boating, and I remember a couple of times or so that he and my wife and I would bowl together in some things, and then of course he was vitally interested in Masonry and always a good consultant. He never really tried to direct me to do one thing or another, but he was always there for advice.
Kind of parallel in that particular question. You've certainly rubbed elbows with other Masonic leaders throughout the state. Could you, I'm not putting you on the spot, I'm not asking you to be prejudiced one way or another, but kind of give me, for benefit of posterity, some of those Masonic leaders that you've been particularly impressed with.
Well, of course, I used to enjoy association with Horace Jackson out at Gatesville, as he was a past Grand Master. And I remember one time we went to San Antonio. I believe it was the time that Bill Dennis here in Waco and myself were getting the KCCH in the Scottish Rite. So Mr. Lockwood and Horace Jackson and Bill and I went to San Antonio, received the degrees, and on the way back it was rather late at night, and there was a little restaurant there in Georgetown. This was before the loop went through, but any time we went through Austin or from Georgetown area, Mr. Jackson and Lockwood always liked the ice cream they had at this little place. So even though it was late at night, we did stop there, and we were still dressed in our tuxes and things from our degrees. And being late at night, the little waitress was confused as to where we might be doing, and she asked us, said, "You fellas just get off playing in the band?" And so we had a good laugh at that, and Bill Dennis ended up introducing Horace Jackson as our bass fiddle player. And so I had an opportunity of seeing a lot of great people in humorous ways and in ways where they were relaxed and not under pressure, but enjoying the Masonic association that goes with the trips to and from the lodge.
Yeah, any more particular people besides Horace Jackson that would stand out in your mind?
Yes, of course, I had the privilege of knowing so many of them that the failure to mention their names doesn't mean that they weren't outstanding to me at all. I guess, though, that Johnny Crooker and Albert DeLange, of course, were two outstanding people. And I always enjoyed the privilege that I was one of them that got to know Marcus Weathered as he was still living. And there are just so many of them that it just makes a kind of a complex and composite picture of the whole thing. But I knew most of Mr. Lockwood's friends, and with the age difference and the success that he had had in Masonry before me, this naturally gave me an opportunity to meet some of the very top leaders in Masonry that I would have never been able to associate with any other way.
Do you, in your own thinking, in your own opinion, do you think that Masonry today is producing the caliber of leadership that you just talked about?
Well, I think we're living in a different time and a different age. As we have moved into the cities and lost the context of small independent towns and things, I definitely feel that the individual person has less effect in our society. And I'll go back to my hometown of Moody there. People were accepted for what they were. Everyone knew them better than any kind of book or any kind of acquaintance could do. So a lot of times it didn't depend on whether a person was really highly trained and educated. Most of the things were because of the person was a good, sound, substantial person, and someone that was honest enough that they knew they could depend on him to put him on the school board, whether he had a college education or not. And people were more prone to ask opinions, I believe, of others, of who they should vote for and different things of that nature. I think the complex society that we live in now, big city governments where a lot of times we don't even know the city councilman that we're electing. We're voting on a hearsay and an electioneering campaign, that before we can really be effective in anything, we have to join a group that is common of our interest. And I think that Masonry has this opportunity to share for the future, even as it did in the past, and that is that even though a person may live in Waco and later on move to Houston for a job opportunity, he immediately has a common bond that he can go to and a place that he can go in and a sense of belonging at his lodge where he can immediately start off in making friends and get himself rounded into his society. But I really think that Masonry has, by its very organizational structure, will always have something to offer in our country, because it is an organization that is in every nook and town in our state and out of states, to where it's a common bond and a common thing for activity. I'm glad that Masonry is non-political, and I'm glad that it doesn't take an active interest in politics, because I think this gives us a better chance to meet people and discuss broadly and make up our own mind as an individual. And I think that if we ever become a political force, that we will lose one of the best landmarks of Masonry we've had, and that is an open discussion policy.
Well, all right, let's go to Duncan Howard, the Grand Master. In your preparation, when getting ready to be Grand Master and setting up your goals and objectives, what was the primary objective that you wanted to accomplish as Grand Master?
Well, I don't know that I had any real primary goal that I wanted to accomplish. I think what my main thought was is to try and keep what we had that was so good. I've always felt like that masonry is really the place that an individual can become united with others in a common effort and a common bond. I think that the Grand Lodge of Texas, of course, we think of it as a controlling force, but it really is not. It should be, and rightly it should be, the individual lodges that come through their representative to our grand communications. They think of the resolutions and law changes that were needed, and they propose and set the laws, and every law that the Grand Lodge has that is supposed to enforce has been put there by a lodge vote in our Grand Lodge. I guess what I really tried to accomplish was to get over to the lodges that they should send in resolutions. If they said something about the law they didn't like, they should try to change it, and change it in a Grand Lodge vote. I encouraged the individual Masons as well. The Grand Masters Regional Conference program was really started to rejuvenate, you might say, during my year. And during that year, in the conferences, it was a question-answer type of conference, and they were encouraged to express the things that they wanted to be voted on at Grand